Y para este imbécil intento de gente que tengo aquí a mi izquierda, que no se le olvide que yo ya vine siendo el Canelo a Estados Unidos y que solamente lucró con mi nombre.
That was Canelo Alvarez, undisputed champion of the world, standing up in front of every camera in boxing and calling his former promoter a thief to his face. Oscar de la Hoya built him, bankrolled him, and handed him the biggest contract in boxing history. And Canelo just told the world Oscar stole it all back. Here is everything that led to this explosion and what Oscar said back that nobody is talking about. The moment it all came out, before there was any beef to speak of, there was a deal. And not just any deal, the single largest contract in the history of boxing. At that point in time, Golden Boy Promotions and streaming platform DAZN stood in front of the world and announced that Canelo Alvarez had signed an 11-fight agreement worth $365 million guaranteed. Oscar de la Hoya personally guaranteed those payments. The number was so large that people were reading it twice. $365 million for one fighter for 11 fights. Oscar positioned it like he had just handed Canelo the keys to the kingdom. And publicly, Canelo played along, but that partnership had already started to rot underneath the surface, and nobody on the outside had any idea. Canelo had been with Golden Boy since 2010. He was 20 years old when he signed with Oscar's company. And at that point, he was just a prospect out of Mexico that people in the sport were keeping an eye on. Oscar's organization helped build the machinery around him, the pay-per-view infrastructure, the Cinco de Mayo fight dates, the matchmaking that put him in front of Floyd Mayweather Jr. in 2013. Golden Boy took a fighter and turned him into a brand. That part is not in dispute. But what Canelo would later say is that Oscar confused building the platform with building the man, and that by the time the DAZN deal came around, Oscar had started to believe that Canelo owed him everything. The first 3 fights under the deal went fine on the surface. Canelo stopped Rocky Fielding. He beat Daniel Jacobs in a unified middleweight title fight. He knocked out Sergey Kovalev to win a light heavyweight title. 3 fights, 3 wins, the machine was running. But behind the scenes, something was already breaking down. During 2019, Golden Boy failed to secure a timely mandatory defense against Sergey Derevianchenko. And after 55 days of silence from the promotional team, the IBF stripped Canelo of a belt. That belt then went to a purse bid involving Golovkin, a decision that was made without Canelo being properly consulted. Canelo would later tell The Athletic, "That's the way he is. We see it now. There's no loyalty." Those words would become the foundation for everything that followed. Then 2020 arrived and it brought COVID-19 with it. A planned May 2020 fight against Billy Joe Saunders was postponed. Live gates disappeared and suddenly DAZN, who had been paying $40 million per fight as a license fee to Golden Boy, with Canelo pocketing roughly $35 million of that, started moving the goalposts. According to the lawsuit Canelo would eventually file, DAZN refused to pay the full guaranteed fee and instead offered a fraction of the cash amount plus unspecified DAZN stock tied to a potential IPO. Canelo's team rejected that. Then Golden Boy was accused of hiding key contractual terms from Canelo, including provisions that may have given DAZN certain approval rights over opponents that Canelo claimed he was never told about. By June 2020, Canelo's lawyers sent a formal letter demanding performance. Mediation failed. On September 8, 2020, Canelo and his company, SA Holiday, Incorporated filed a 24-page federal lawsuit in Los Angeles against Golden Boy Promotions, Oscar de la Hoya personally, and multiple DAZN entities. The claims included breach of contract, fraud, concealment of material contract terms, breach of fiduciary duty, and interference with prospective economic relations. The damages sought came to at least $280 million, plus punitive damages and a full release from the contracts. The lawsuit was filed in federal court, dismissed on a jurisdictional technicality, and then immediately refiled in Los Angeles Superior Court. It was not a bluff. Canelo wanted out, and he wanted accountability. On November 6, 2020, the lawsuit settled confidentially. The financial terms were never disclosed. What was disclosed is that Canelo Alvarez was released from every promotional and broadcasting obligation with both Golden Boy and DAZN. 8 fights remained on the $365 million deal. He walked away from all of it. Or rather, he walked toward total independence, which is exactly what he had been fighting for. Oscar called the outcome satisfactory to all parties. Canelo said nothing about Oscar. He went back to the gym and signed to fight Callum Smith on Showtime PPV in December 2020. The two men had not been on the same stage during fight week since 2019, and that was how things stayed for a while.
Seen some stuff about with the whole like Oscar De La Hoya thing.
I'm glad to go away from him.
Yeah.
That was Canelo in a separate interview already putting the distance between him and Oscar into plain language. He was glad to be gone. That sentence alone tells you everything about the state of the relationship by the time the lawsuit was over.
He's fucking crazy.
We're really good friends with Dana White, and he doesn't like Oscar De La Hoya too.
But walking away did not mean the conversation was over. Between 2021 and 2023, Oscar used Instagram lives and media appearances to criticize Canelo repeatedly. His fight choices, his activity level, his trainer Eddie Reynoso. Oscar had his own platform and he was using it. And every time he did, it was another log on a fire that Canelo was keeping just below the surface, waiting for the right moment to let it breathe. That moment came on May 1, 2024. The fight between Canelo and Jamie Munguia was scheduled for May 4, 2024 at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Munguia was undefeated at 42 wins and 0 losses, 27 years old with 34 knockouts. He was also promoted in part by Golden Boy, which meant Oscar De La Hoya would be at the press conference. And for the first time since their 2020 split, so would Canelo. Same stage, same room. For years of unsettled business between them, sitting in the air like smoke. Oscar spoke first. He stood at the podium, reading from notes and addressed Canelo directly. He acknowledged personal struggles, rehab, personal low points, but then pivoted immediately into demands. Golden Boy built Canelo Alvarez, period. Put some freaking respect on it. He also brought up Canelo's 2018 clenbuterol test failure, the failed drug test that Canelo had attributed to contaminated Mexican meat, for which he served a suspension. Oscar dragged it back out in front of cameras, and then he sat down, satisfied that he had made his point. Canelo stood up. He walked directly toward Oscar until they were less than 10 feet apart, face to face, and security was already moving before he said a single word.
Para este imbécil intento de gente que tengo aquí a mi izquierda, que no se le olvide que yo ya vine siendo el Canelo de Estados Unidos y que solamente lucró con.
He was not reading from notes. He was not staying behind a podium. And he was not finished.
Nunca perdí un solo centavo, sino más ganó dinero. ¿Ya le pagaste a Golovkin lo que le quería robar? Sí, muy bien, porque sí.
The room went immediately electric. He had just accused Oscar De La Hoya on camera at an official press event of trying to steal money from Gennady Golovkin. This was not a vague implication. This was a direct named accusation in front of journalists from every major outlet in the sport. The theft accusations and what was actually stolen. To understand why the Golovkin reference hit the way it did, you have to go back to March 2022. Golovkin filed a lawsuit against Golden Boy, seeking approximately $3 million in unpaid pay-per-view revenue from the 2018 Canelo-Golovkin rematch. Golovkin alleged he had not received what he was owed from one of the most commercially successful fights Golden Boy had ever promoted. That lawsuit became for Canelo the single clearest piece of public evidence for everything he had been saying privately since 2020. He referenced it consistently in interviews. He referenced it again on that stage on May 1, 2024. And when Oscar looked at him and tried to claim credit for building him, Canelo's response was to name the man Oscar had allegedly shorted, a man who had been Canelo's rival inside the ring, not his ally. That is how deep the contempt had gone. Canelo was defending Golovkin to make a point about Oscar.
También, pero si no hubiera metido a mis abogados me lo robas. Es lo único que hace este hombre es ser una lacra del boxeo, robarle a los boxeadores.
Saying it plainly. If his own lawyers had not stepped in during the DAZN dispute, Oscar would have taken money that belonged to him. That is the accusation stated without decoration in front of the entire boxing media.
Esté con él, meta por favor ahí a sus abogados porque seguramente les está robando. El único que viene a hacer al boxeo. Y a lo único que viene es a robarle la atención a Jaime Munguía. No viene a promover.
That last line was pointed in two directions at once. He was accusing Oscar of stealing financially from fighters, and he was accusing him of stealing the spotlight from his own fighter, Munguia, at a press conference meant to promote Munguia's biggest fight. Munguia reportedly laughed through much of the exchange. That detail alone says something about the state of the relationship between Golden Boy and the fighters it was supposed to be building. Now, Oscar did respond, and he did not take it quietly. The day after the press conference, Golden Boy sent Canelo a cease and desist letter demanding he retract the defamatory allegations about stealing money from fighters, including the Golovkin reference, and stop making further public statements of that nature. Oscar maintained that Golden Boy had paid everyone what they were owed. He framed the confrontation as standard fight week theater. He told media it felt good to say it to Canelo's face after holding back for years. "We are not at church. This is a fight. Let's go." He also said directly to Canelo on that stage, "You know who your daddy is." Canelo's response to the cease and desist was to dismiss it entirely. He told interviewers that Oscar only wanted attention. He also said he had proof of the financial issues from the Golden Boy and DAZN era. He did not specify what that proof was, but he said it with a kind of certainty that does not read like posturing. It reads like someone who has been sitting on documents. Oscar had his own version of events for why the relationship broke down and he aired it out in pieces across his social media. But Oscar's account had a gap in it that he acknowledged himself in a 2025 interview. He said he still did not fully understand what triggered Canelo's resentment. That is a strange thing to say about someone you promoted for a decade. Canelo traced it back to decisions made without his knowledge during 2019, specifically the IBF stripping situation and the behind-the-scenes arrangements with Golovkin that happened without his input. Oscar had made commitments, including reportedly promising DAZN a Golovkin trilogy bout without securing Canelo's full approval for a fighter who had just signed the biggest contract in boxing history. Being made promises to third parties without your knowledge is not a minor administrative error. It is a fundamental breach of trust.
Canelo Hoya has announced he's coming out of retirement to box again.
Cocaine isn't cheap.
I think nobody.
Because he's a vacuum, right?
Every time he's in problems, he don't have any fighters.
He was talking about Oscar's pattern. Every time Golden Boy runs into trouble, the roster thins out. Ryan Garcia, who signed with Golden Boy as a young star, also ended up in a dispute with the promotional company. Canelo pointed to it as a pattern, not an accident, not a coincidence, but a method. Oscar's side of the financial picture is that Golden Boy made Canelo enormously wealthy, negotiated the largest contract in boxing history on his behalf, and that any disputes that arose were a product of the pandemic and complicated contract language rather than deliberate misconduct. He also maintained that the DAZN-era settlement was satisfactory to all parties. But the cease and desist letter he sent the very next morning after the press conference suggests that what Canelo said on stage was not something Oscar was prepared to simply brush off as fight week theater. You do not send legal letters demanding retractions from someone whose words you consider harmless hype. Now, here is where the story gets another dimension entirely because Oscar did not just respond with legal threats. He went on Instagram and he kept going back.
Canelo, I just saw another video where you're still talking shit. All you say is fuck him, fuck that. Oh, he stole from me.
Oscar addressed Canelo directly on camera. He was not reading from prepared remarks this time. He was reacting.
Obviously, aside from defaming me, why don't you look inside your own circle? Because I know for a fact that people are stealing from me.
That line deserves a pause. Oscar de la Hoya, the man Canelo accused of stealing from fighters, responded by telling Canelo to look at the people around him. He was suggesting that Canelo was being stolen from by members of his own team. That is not a denial. That is a deflection into an entirely new accusation. Whether it is true or a calculated distraction, the effect of saying it publicly is to cast a shadow over everyone in Canelo's corner without naming a single person.
By the way, you lined my pockets, you made me a shitload of money, all because you're afraid of David Benavidez.
Alright everyone, stay tuned for the latest in boxing news, highlights, events, and stories. Subscribe to Legacy Round and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Be sure to watch our other videos too. Until next time, take care and stay safe.